MTG Mudsta. Commander tested, Goblin approved.
Hey gang, just to let you know, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com and originalmagicart.store. Using the code gets you 10% off orders $10 or more, and you get to help out the channel at the same time. To those who are celebrating, Merry Christmas Eve, and if you're not, Happy Monday, and I hope you're having a great day. Today's game has Pat playing Will and Rowan, keeping 2 islands, a mountain, Royal Mage's Trick, Erratic Mutation, Downsize, and Dak Faden. Marcus, who's been nice enough to drive up from Pennsylvania to join us, is playing Roon, keeping Eldamri's Call, Ixodron, Glacial Fortress, Soul Ring, Chromatic Lantern, Hollowed Fountain, and Spellseeker. Don is playing his Brago deck, keeping Oketra's Monument, Urza's Ruinous Blast, Soul Warden, Command Tower, Mirror Image, Vanish into Memory, and Foreboding Watchtower. And last but not least, Ryan is playing Rhys, keeping our Plains, a Forest, Selesnya Signet, Cathar's Crusade, Sapling Migration, and Beastmaster Ascension. I should warn you, this game may shock you as Pat has taken some creative liberties with some of the cards in his deck. Don wins the die roll and starts us off. Don plays a tap Foreboding Watchtower and passes. Ryan plays a Forest and casts Rhys. Marcus plays a tapped Hollowed Fountain and passes. Pat plays an island for his turn. Don casts Soul Warden and plays a Command Tower, passing. Ryan plays a Plains, and he casts Selesnya Signet. He then hits Marcus for 1 with his commander, and passes. Marcus plays a Glacial Fortress, and he then casts a Soul Ring. He taps out to cast a Chromatic Lantern, and passes to Pat. Pat plays a Mountain. Don plays a tapped Skyline Cascade, and targets Rhys to make him not untap during Ryan's next untap step. Ryan plays a Plains, and he pays 4 to cast a Parallel Lives. Marcus casts Kadama's Reach in his main phase, grabbing an island for the field and a forest to the hand. He plays the forest, and then casts a Spellseeker, which gives Don 1 life thanks to the Warden. Marcus then goes to find a Green Sun Zenith, and passes to Pat. Pat plays another island, and casts Dak Faden. He then downticks the Walker to steal Marcus' Soul Ring, and passes. Don plays a Mastery of the Unseen for 2 in his main phase, and moving to combat, avenges Marcus' Soul Ring by taking out Dak with his Soul Warden. Ryan draws for turn and casts a Commander Sphere. He then casts Sapling Migration, not kicked, but he still gains 4 tokens thanks to the Parallel Lives, and Don gains 4 life from the Warden. Marcus really wishes he still had his Soul Ring, but he settles for casting Leyline of Anticipation, and passes. Pat plays a real land, Desolate Lighthouse, and passes. Don casts an Oketra's Monument in his main phase, and passes to Ryan. Ryan draws and casts Beastmaster Ascension in his main phase. He then moves to combat, hitting Pat for 4, and putting 4 counters on the Ascension. In his second main phase, he plays a Colony Garden, gaining 2 plant tokens and giving Don 2 more life. At the end of Ryan's turn, Marcus casts Green Sun Zenith, where X is 0 to go and find a Dryad Arbor, which has Don gain another life as it enters. Marcus draws and passes. At the end of the turn, Pat activates his Lighthouse, drawing and discarding an island. Pat plays another island, and passes. Don draws for turn, and doesn't seem to play any lands. He casts Taxos of Meletis in his main phase, and gains a token from the monument, which nets him a total of 2 more life. Ryan moves straight to combat, swinging his 4 saplings at Don and 2 plants at Pat. This adds 6 more counters to the Ascension, which has it active. Pat then takes 10, while Don blocks 1 with his Soldier and takes 18. Ryan then passes, and at the end of turn, Marcus casts Eldamri's Call to go and find Seedborn Muse. He's not done though, and casts Congregation at dawn. Marcus gets to go and find Venser, Deadeye Navigator, and Muldrifter, putting them on top in any order of his choice. In Marcus's first main phase, he casts Seedborn Muse, and Don gains 1 while Marcus passes. At the end of turn, Pat activates his Lighthouse once more to draw and discard. Marcus untaps with Pat, and Pat activates the Lighthouse once more. He plays an island as his land for turn, and passes. At the end of turn, Marcus flashes in Muldrifter, drawing 2 and giving Don 1 life. Don plays an island for his turn, and casts Brago, gaining a Soldier token from the Monument trigger. He gains 2 life, and moves to combat. He swings Daxos at Ryan, who takes a hit for 2, and Daxos exiles a Wasteland, which gives Don no life. At the end of turn, Marcus flashes in Deadeye, soul bonding it with a Muldrifter, and Don gains 1, while Ryan activates Rhys, doubling his token, which gives Dawn even more life. Ryan cycles his secluded step in his main phase and moves to combat. He swings everything at Marcus, who, before leaving the Declare Attacker's step, bounces the Ascension back to Ryan's hand with a Cyclonic Rift. He then blocks Rhys and 2 Saprolines, losing only 6 life. In his second main phase, Ryan casts Righteous Confluence, choosing to exile the Leyline, the Mastery, and get a 2/2 Knight. But Marcus flashes in Venser to bounce it back to Ryan's hand. Pat is ready though, and uses Twin Cast to copy the spell. The targets are the same, and the 2 enchantments get exiled while Pat gains a 2/2 Knight. This means Dawn also gains 2 life, 1 from Venser and 1 from the Knight entering. Marcus blinks Muldrifter in his main phase, drawing 2 and giving Dawn 1 life. He blinks it again, and Dawn gains 1 more. Marcus then plays a tapped Irrigated Farmland, and pays another 2 to flicker the Deadeye. This time it bonds with Venser as it re-enters, and Dawn gains 1 while Marcus passes. Pat draws for turn and activates his Lighthouse, drawing and discarding, then passing turn. At the end of turn, Marcus bounces Venser, who re-enters and puts the Venser trigger on the stack to bounce Ryan's Parallel Lives. This resolves, and Marcus then does it again after bonding it with the Deadeye Navigator to bounce his stolen Soul Ring back to his hand when Venser re-enters. Pat taps it to float 2 colorless, and we then move to Dawn's turn after he gains some life. Dawn plays a tapped Serigi Refuge as his land for turn, gaining 1 as it enters. He casts Light Form and manifests the top card of his library, gaining 1 as it enters. He moves to combat, and Brago goes at Pat for 2 while Daxos finds its way at Ryan. Dawn exiles the Cloud Goat Ranger with Daxos, gaining 5 life, and blinks Brago, the Manifest creature, Light Form, and Daxos. He gains 3 life from the Warden as Brago, Daxos, and the new Manifest creature come into play, and Dawn reveals Sigil of the Empty Throne as his original manifested card. At the end of turn, Marcus uses Venser to bounce Pat's Mountain back to his hand, and Dawn's Brago, which has Dawn gain 2 more life. Ryan attempts to recast Beastmaster Ascension, but in response to the spell in the stack, Marcus bounces Venser again to bounce the spell back to Ryan's hand, and Dawn gains 1. Ryan then passes, and Marcus bounces the Sigil of the Empty Throne back to Dawn's hand, which gains Dawn another life. At the end of turn, Marcus also casts Enlightened Tutor to go and find Birthing Pod, and passes. Marcus recasts his Soul Ring in his main phase, and then drops Defense of the Heart. Moving to combat, he swings a Deadeye at Pat, who blocks with a Knight. Pat draws for turn, and he plays a Mountain. He passes, and at the end of turn, Marcus flickers Venser to bounce the Mountain. Pat floats the red, and responding to the Soul Bond trigger on the stack, Pat pays 1 blue to cast Lost in a Labyrinth to give Venser -3/-0. Pat scries, and he then flashes in Crookclaw Transmuter to swap Venser's power with its toughness. Dawn also gains 1 life as it enters, and Venser dies. Dawn draws for turn and slams down Urza's Ruinous Blast. This basically exiles the board except for Daxos and the Monument, which Dawn then swings at Marcus for 2. Dawn gains 4 as Daxos exiles Restoration Angel, and he passes turn. Ryan plays a Sun Petal Grove, and he recasts Parallel Lives. With nothing else, he passes to Marcus. Marcus casts Reclamation Sage in his main phase, and blows up Ryan's recently recast Parallel Lives. He then plays a Flooded Strand, cracking it and taking 1 to go and find a land. He grabs Canopy Vista, and he then casts Birthing Pod, taking 2. Marcus then activates the pod, taking another 2 to pot away the Reclamation Sage. He finds Solemn Simulacrum, and grabs a basic island. Pat replays his Mountain for the 3rd time, and he casts Will Kenrith. He upticks Will, targeting Daxos and the Solemn, and he passes turn. Dawn recasts Brago in his main phase, gaining a Soldier token as he casts it, and then passes turn. Ryan plays a Cathar's Crusade in his main phase, and then drops a tapped Desert of the Indomitable. Marcus plays a Mana Confluence, and pods away the Solemn Simulacrum, sadly not getting to draw a card as it dies because of Will's ability. He goes to find a 5-drop, and he grabs Teferi, and then passes turn. Pat upticks Will once more, targeting Teferi and Daxos. With the trigger on the stack, Marcus flashes in Recruiter of the Guard, and goes to find an Eternal Witness. He then flashes the Witness in while the trigger is still on the stack, and returns Congregation at Dawn. Will's trigger finally resolves, and with Teferi now at 0 power, Pat casts Twisted Image to swap Teferi's power for his toughness, and kills the mage. Dawn plays an Azorius Guildgate, which comes in tapped, and he casts a Body Double, having it come in as a copy of Venser. He uses the Venser trigger to bounce Pat's Will back to hand, and Dawn moves to combat. Before letting him declare attackers, Pat casts Inside Out to swap Daxos' power and toughness, killing the Throsian native and drawing a card. Fearing any more shenanigans from Pat, Dawn then passes turn. Ryan plays a forest and enchants his colony garden with Squirrel's Nest. Ryan then wastes no time to cast a Croson Grip to blow up Marcus's birthing pod and passes turn. Marcus casts a Congregation at dawn in his main phase and goes to find Reviarch, Karmic Guide, and Snapcaster Mage. He then brings out Roon and passes to Pat. Pat recasts Will in his main phase and upticks his Walker targeting Roon and Brago. He then passes to Dawn. Dawn's turn has Oblivion Ring hitting the field and exiling Will Kenrith. He passes, and at the end of turn, Ryan makes a squirrel. Ryan draws for turn and casts Avenger of Zendikar, gaining 7 plant tokens once it enters. This means that the Crusade gets triggered once as the Avenger hits, and then several more times once the plants hits, pumping Ryan's modest board into a huge board of beaters. Moving to combat, the giant squirrel goes at Marcus, who blocks it with Ruin, and Ryan passes. Marcus casts Reviarch in his main phase, and then moves to combat. He swings the Eternal Witness and Recruiter at Pat for 3, and in his second main phase, he casts Supreme Verdict to wipe the board. With Reviarch dying, Marcus gets to bring back Reclamation Sage and Venser. He blows up the Cathar's Crusade, and Venser bounces the garden with the Squirrel's Nest attached to Ryan's hand. With nothing else, he passes. Pat plays another mountain in his land for turn, and brings out Will once more. He upticks his Walker, targeting both of Marcus's creatures, and passes. Dawn draws and casts Vessel of the Endless Rest. This lets him put Urza's Ruinous Blast on the bottom of his library. And he then drops an Angel of Condemnation, getting a soldier token as it enters. Ryan casts Kadama's Reach in his main phase, grabbing a Plains through the field and a forest to his hand. He then plays the forest and recasts Rhys before passing turn. Marcus draws and immediately casts the Karmic Guide he just drew. He brings back Teferi with the trigger and passes to Pat. Pat draws for turn and upticks Will, targeting Teferi once more and Rhys. Pat then casts Pull from the Deep, returning Twisted Image to his hand, and he passes turn. Dawn recasts Brago in his main phase, gaining another soldier token, and he drops a key to the city and moves to combat. He hits Will with the Angel, and then passes to Ryan. Ryan casts a Primal Vigor in his main phase, and follows up with a Spectral Possession, gaining 6 Spirit tokens. He then passes to Marcus. Marcus pays the Echo cost for his Karmic Guide in his upkeep, and moves through his combat step. He swings what he can at Will for 6, but Pat casts Hydrolash to basically fog the combat step, and then uses Twisted Image to kill Teferi once more as it's still under the effect of Will's ability. Pat plays a Command Tower, and he upticks Will to target the Angel and Rhys. He then brings out Rowan, and downticks Rowan to deal 3 damage to all of Marcus's tapped creatures, which is pretty much all of them. Dawn recasts Sigil the Empty Throne in his main phase, and he then casts a Conviction onto the Angel of Condemnation, gaining 2 Angel tokens as the aura hits the field because of Ryan's Primal Vigor. Dawn then swings Brago at Ryan for 2, and upon connecting, flickers the Vessel to put a card on the bottom, the Conviction to put it onto another Angel and gets another Angel as it enters, and the Oblivion Ring to exile the Primal Vigor, which also gives him more Angels. Ryan plays a Plains and recasts the Righteous Confluence that had been bounced back to his hand earlier. He hits Dawn's Oblivion Ring and Sigil and gains a Night token. Ryan then recasts the Beastmaster Ascension again and swings everything at Dawn. Dawn pays 1 to bounce the aura back to his hand and blocks what he can. He blocks 3 Spirit tokens, but still drops to 44 after taking the hit. Marcus draws and passes. Pat draws for turn and realizes his hand can't do much against the Giant Spirits or any of the remaining enchantments. He upticks Will, targeting Rhys and the Angel again, and then upticks Rowan, forcing Ryan to attack with his creatures on Ryan's next turn. We then see a Dwarven Thaumaturgus hit the field, and Pat passes turn. Dawn draws for turn and casts Vanish into Memory on one of Ryan's Spirit tokens. He draws 6 cards, and then casts the Dusk half of Dusk to Dawn. Marcus makes a deal with Ryan to save the board if he agrees to take out Pat and Dawn before taking him out. Ryan agrees, at which point Marcus casts Snapcaster Mage in response to the wipe. He flashes back Eldamri's Call to go and find a Mystic Snake, and lets the snake hit the field and counter the board wipe. Ryan casts Angel of Invention in his main phase, fabricating and making more tokens. He swings everything but the Knight at Dawn and the Knight at Pat. Dawn blocks what he can, but still gets taken out, and Pat throws his Dwarf in the way of the Knight and doesn't take any damage. Marcus draws and casts Angel of Finality to exile Pat's graveyard. He then drops a Blade of Selves and moves to combat. Snapcaster Mage and the Snake go at Will, but Royal Mage's trick ends up giving all of Pat's opponent's creatures -2/-0 until end of turn, and it draws Pat a card. With nothing else, Marcus passes. Pat plays a mountain and down ticks Will to use his ultimate. Pat then casts Jace's Sanctum, and up ticks Rowan once more, targeting Ryan. Ryan untaps and draws for turn. He plays a forest, and he activates Rhys to double his tokens. At this point though, he still has more than enough to swing and take out Marcus and Pat, which he does, winning the game. Game review time. So I'm sorry I had to expose you all to that. I only learned that Pat was the monster that he was once the game had started recording, as I'd gone to the washroom. By that point it was too late to stop the camera, and well, that's all she wrote. All kidding aside, it was a fun deck to see, with the switching of power and toughness being a way to kill creatures, as an interesting take on Izzet. There's not much to say about Dawn's deck, as it seemed like a very typical Brago deck, with a lot of bounce effects and flicker effects, but he did seem to have a sub-theme of life gain, which was kinda cool. The same could be said about Marcus's Roon deck, as a lot of the time those kind of decks typically focus on certain types of creatures, and as a result tend to be a bit linear. That doesn't take away from the fact that Marcus's deck was very powerful and very controlling until all three of his opponents had to gang up on him to take him out. You might be wondering why Marcus made a deal with Ryan, and frankly, it's because the game had been going for over 2 hours, it was well late into night, and everyone wanted to hit the road and get going home. There was a chance that Marcus could have drawn another board wipe and pulled it back, but he'd had his fun at that point, and was okay with Ryan winning the game. As I was saying before about Dawn's deck, Ryan's Rhys or Rhys's Pieces deck is basically very similar to every other one you might see on the internet. That's not to say that it's bad, I just don't have a lot to say about it since it's pretty established and a lot of the cards are very similar throughout. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.